J.R.R. Tolkien is the most important author of the 20th century.
Was that here was a world that had a history, it had languages, it had traditions.
What we want to do is what Tolkien did deeply, not on the surface.
Tolkien gave the world permission to dream.
Although I get credit, but killing people and all of that stuff, I was sort of imitating Tolkien there too. I remember reading Lord of the Rings, and it was great. And then Gandalf died. You can't kill Gandalf.
Most of the writers of my generation were influenced by Tolkien, because Tolkien had single-handedly just created a viable genre.
Neil Gaiman, Brandon Sanderson, Robin Hobb, and George R.R. Martin are considered to be some of the greatest authors in the fantasy space. But in reality, all of them are victims. All of them were deceived. From fans to creatives in the fantasy space, many have looked up to J.R.R. Tolkien as one of the world's greatest creative minds, as a man who single-handedly fathered the fantasy genre. These are the lies that J.R.R. Tolkien and his estate would wish you to believe. But some new leaked files actually present a completely different story. A story which they fought to bury for nearly 100 years. This is a story of the greatest heist in literary history. The story of how J.R.R. Tolkien stole the Lord of the Rings. The Ring of Power is considered to be one of J.R.R. Tolkien's greatest creations. It has been parodied and referenced time and time again.
Must have our precious...
My precious power ring!
My precious!
But the Ring of Power, the reforging of Narsil to Andúril, Gandalf, the dynamic between Aragorn and the immortal Arwen, Ringwraiths, the White Tree, and even the little bird which whispers into Bard's ear and tells him where to shoot Smaug, were not original ideas, but actually lifted from a hidden text, which J.R.R. Tolkien and his estate have fought to keep secret. Today I will be playing the jury, Judge Judy, and the executioner. I am the arbiter of truth, and my judgment will decide the fate which should be given to J.R.R. Tolkien and his estate. So let's first examine this case, starting with the most important piece of evidence, the Ring of Power. While many believe the Ring of Power was a sole invention of J.R.R. Tolkien, it was actually lifted from this hidden text which I have uncovered, the Volsunga Saga. In the Volsunga Saga, Loki, Fafnir, and Odin are all traveling together, and Loki decides to treat the boys to a cheeky plate of otter, which he had caught and skinned himself. Little did he know this wasn't actually an otter, but actually the shape-shifting son of Hreithmar the dwarf. Hreithmar demands that the gods fill his son's otter skin completely with red gold. Loki is sent to pay the ransom, but rather than footing the bill himself, he finds another shape-shifting dwarf named Anfadi, who shape-shifted into a fish, and is swimming by a waterfall in a lake. He astutely captures a dwarf, and demands that he give Loki all of his loot. Loki has no mercy on the dwarf Anfadi, and even demands that he give him the last ring on his hand. Embittered, Anfadi curses the ring, and his stolen treasure, that it would be the bane of every man who possesses it. Does this scene sound familiar? A sneaky burglar, using trickery to steal a ring from a greedy little creature who lurks beneath a waterfall. And it gets even crazier, because this ring is referred to as the Ring of Power. As the narrative progresses, so too do the undeniable damning receipts of J.R.R. Tolkien's theft. As Loki returns with the gold, he fills Otter's skin with Anfari's stolen loot, but Hreithmar points out one exposed hair and demands that it be covered. Loki pushes back, saying that was all of his gold, but Hreithmar points to one ring upon his finger, a most precious ring, which Loki intended to keep for himself. But Hreithmar insists, and so do Odin and Fafnir, that way they can be released from their obligation. Loki begrudgingly gives away the cursed ring, and shortly thereafter, Hreithmar's son Fafnir lusts after the treasure and kills his father for it. He is corrupted by his greed, and is transformed into the foulest of worms, a wicked dragon who lays brooding upon his vast treasure. Here we can see that J.R.R. Tolkien stole many aspects of Fafnir's corruption. Just as Smeagol's greed led him to murder Deagol, Fafnir slayed his father. Similarly, just as the Ringwraiths were once great but transformed into ghastly monsters, Fafnir also turned into a ferocious dragon. You can also see how Smaug is a spitting image of Fafnir, a dragon who does nothing more than rest upon his stolen treasure which was stolen from dwarves, who were chased away from their home, just as Regin, Fafnir's brother, who was forced to flee from his home and his father, and would later enlist the help of Sigurd to slay the dragon and liberate his horde, similar to how the dwarves would employ help from Bilbo Baggins. After killing the dragon Fafnir, Sigurd consumed some of its blood, giving Sigurd the ability to understand birds. Birds warned him that the dwarf Regin had been corrupted by his greed, and would attempt to kill him, causing Sigurd to slay the dwarf and take the treasure for his own. Of course, you can clearly see how these speaking birds are very similar to the thrush which told Bard of the missing scale and guided him to his fatal shot against Smaug. This isn't the end of J.R.R. Tolkien's plagiarisms. Another key aspect to The Lord of the Rings is Aragorn, the true king of Gondor, who restored his shattered family line. Similarly, Sigurd descended from the legendary King Volsung, and restored his family line as well. A motif of his family's shattered dynasty was the smashed sword Gram, which was reforged by the dwarven smith Regin. This brazen theft is the origin of Aragorn. His ancestor Isildur also had a sword which was shattered to pieces, and the elven blacksmiths reforged it. Just as Loki's greed couldn't be satiated, and he had to steal every last bit of Anfari's gold, Tolkien similarly squeezed every drop he could from the Volsunga Saga. Just as there was a forbidden love between Aragorn and Arwen, the immortal elf, Sigurd also fell in love with the Valkyrie Brunhilde, but due to the malice of others, they were prevented from staying together. Now let me take a moment to describe a character for you. He has a long grey beard, wears a cloak, a slouched brim hat, and he carries a walking stick. Who am I describing? No, not Gandalf, but Odin, the mysterious Allfather who came at key points in the story to provide magical aid. Perhaps you're thinking, sure, Tolkien stole the physical description, but at least he created an original name. Well, once again you're wrong. The name Gandalf was also a character briefly mentioned in the Germanic sagas. But The Lord of the Rings didn't just steal major characters and plot points, but even tiny details as well. For example, just as a white tree signified the health of the kingdom of Gondor, the Volsungs also had a tree, which symbolized the health and strength of their family. Also, just as Bilbo woke Smaug by stealing a golden cup, Beowulf's dragon was also awoken by a thief who had swiped one of his goblets. It seems that thievery is a common occurrence in Tolkien's work. Perhaps this is his own guilty conscience speaking out against his will. As prosecutor, I delivered an objective and unbiased case against the defendant John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. And as judge and jury, I also give my unbiased and objective opinion that John Ronald Reuel Tolkien is indeed guilty of theft, plagiarism, extortion, racketeering, fraud, and also wearing silly hats. His sentence is to spend the next 80 years in solitary confinement, forced to endlessly watch the Finnish adaptation of The Hobbit. April 1st, the year 2026, in the marsupial court of J.J. Trujillo. I pronounce you guilty if you do not like and subscribe.